Hello folks, welcome back to the Food for the Faithful channel with me, your reluctant prophet, growing in his fall foliage. Hopefully it'll be looking a little less scrubby the next video I record. I've been fooling around with ChatGPT and I have some interesting observations, but I'm going to begin with a quote. Communism has been the greatest social engineering experiment we have ever seen. It failed utterly, and in doing so killed over 100 million men, women, and children, not to mention the near 30 million of its subjects that died in its often aggressive wars and the rebellions it provoked. But there is a larger lesson to be learned from this horrendous sacrifice to one ideology. That is, that no one can be trusted with power. The more power the center has to impose the beliefs of an ideological or religious elite or impose the whims of a dictator, the more likely human lives are to be sacrificed. This is but one reason, but perhaps the most important one, for fostering liberal democracy. And that was by Dr. Rudolf Rummel, who is an American political scientist and professor at the Indiana University, Yale University, and the University of Hawaii. I am convinced, as Aldous Huxley presciently warned, that man is being subjected to his own inventions, only to become their victims. As the scriptures state, the Sabbath was made for man, not man for the Sabbath. And as to where we are headed, the two major totalitarian ideologies of the 20th century are converging, just as they once diverged, since both began with the same essential socialist premise that life is a zero-sum game of monopoly. Only now, this game is being played on a global scale. To be honest, this is why the tyrannies of the 20th century had resulted in 2 world wars and the Cold War, since they had a globalist agenda even back then. Globalism posits a fascist business model indicating that the dialectical materialism of communism has merged with the central control of fascism, where private enterprises will only exist as cooperative extension of the state as stakeholders, in contrast to answering to its shareholders. This is why we constantly hear the phrase stakeholder capitalism replacing that of free markets and individual interests. What could possibly go wrong when the 2 major totalitarian ideologies of the 20th century fornicate to create Satan's baby? Well, we're about to find out exactly what will go wrong. But as an experiment, I had been engaged in interlocution with ChatGPT. You ought to be aware that it acts upon a massive database fed to it in 2021 by programmers who are heavily biased toward favoring socialism, while mysteriously ignoring the fact that both socialism and fascism have similar origins, which have resulted in disastrous outcomes. So today, I asked ChatGPT to write me a paper in Jordan B. Peterson style about the zero-sum game of communism. It replied in about 10 seconds with the following. Title: The Zero-Sum Game of Communism, a Jordan Peterson Perspective. Introduction. In the realm of socio-political ideologies, few concepts have garnered as much intrigue and controversy as communism. From its inception, communism has been touted as a system that promises the redistribution of wealth and eradication of inequality. However, upon closer examination, it becomes evident that the zero-sum nature of communism is not without its complexities and implications. In this paper, we will delve into the zero-sum game of communism, exploring its theoretical underpinnings and the real-world consequences it has yielded. Drawing inspiration from the teachings of Dr. Jordan B. Peterson, we will navigate through the intricate interplay of power, economics, and human nature within the context of communist ideals. Subtitle: Net Zero Sum Paradigm, or the zero-sum paradigm. At its core, communism posits a zero-sum game where resources are shared collectively among members of society, ostensibly to eliminate disparities between the privileged and the marginalized. This zero-sum framework suggests that any gain by one individual must necessarily entail a loss for another. Such a perspective inherently challenges the Darwinian nature of human interactions, where the struggle for resources has historically driven the evolution of societies. Subtitle: Human Nature and Inequality. Dr. Peterson, a prominent voice in the discourse on human nature, argues that inequality is not merely a result of arbitrary power dynamics, but a consequence of inherent individual differences. Communism's attempt to level the playing field often overlooks the fact that humans possess diverse talents, motivations, and aspirations. By maintaining equal outcomes, communism inadvertently dampens the potential for individual excellence and innovation. Subtitle: The Power Dilemma. Communism's ambition to establish a classless society clashes with the reality of power dynamics. Dr. Peterson's teachings emphasize the hierarchical nature of human societies, where hierarchies emerge naturally based on competence and authority. In communist regimes, the centralized authority of the state often leads to a concentration of power within a select few. The result is a paradox, where the supposed goal of eradicating inequality ends up reinforcing it through an unequal distribution of authority. Subtitle: Incentives and Stagnation. One of the central criticisms that Dr. Peterson raises against communism pertains to the lack of individual incentives. Communism's zero-sum game fails to account for the importance of motivation and reward. In a system where personal effort and innovation do not yield proportional rewards, the incentive to excel diminishes. This can lead to stagnation of progress and a society that fails to adapt to changing circumstances. Conclusion. In the grand theater of ideological narratives, the zero-sum game of communism takes center stage with its promise of equality and shared resources. However, a Jordan Peterson-inspired perspective offers a nuanced exploration of the inherent challenges within this paradigm. Dr. Peterson's insights on human nature, power dynamics, and incentives highlight the limitations and potential pitfalls of communism's zero-sum vision. As we navigate the intricate interplay of ideology and reality, it becomes clear that understanding the complexities of communism requires a multidimensional examination that transcends the simplicity of a zero-sum equation. End of ChatGPT's paper that it wrote about Peterson's perspective on the zero-sum game. And I'll finish with these thoughts, and as always, a request for prayer. Ah, yes. The outcome has never resulted in anything other than what Dr. Rummel warned us about, namely, murderous tyranny. In this we see that we are once again becoming victims of both ideologies and technologies of our own creation. And with AI being as massively powerful as it is, replete with inherent biases favoring socialism and centralized control, we can see a technology emerging as just the thing that will assume control over our means of production and the distribution of resources. This will inevitably kill the free market based upon personal choice and our freedom right along with it, if we cannot keep Beelzebub's baby locked in its crib. And this is but one reason but perhaps the most important for fostering liberal democracy, just as Dr. Rudolf Rommel warned us. These are things to think and pray about, because this is one powerful technology that I am convinced we don't even know what we're playing with. This is why some really great minds, advanced minds in terms of being on the edge of technological development, like Elon Musk, have warned us that we need to be very careful about how we're proceeding with this, especially given the overwhelming propensity in society today to look for collective solutions in a social collectivist manner. Our universities are besotted with socialism, which is why ChatGPT's database is so biased. And again, it hasn't been updated since 2021. We'll see what the future holds, but I predict that there is something very, very dire coming down the pipeline this fall. These are things to think and pray about, because man wasn't created for the Sabbath, but the Sabbath was created for man. Let us remember that our technologies should serve us and further higher ontology, further a godly purpose, and that we ought not to become their slaves. God bless you all. Have a wonderful afternoon.